All right, I'm beginning a start to finish using the DOT Civil 3D setup. I'm going to do it all the way. I'm assuming that everything is set up on the computer, but I'm going to check as I go through the process. The first thing, of course, is to set up your directory structure for receiving the project. And out on the K drive in the Civil 3D development, in the support and research, there is a DOT file structure. So you're going to go ahead and right-click that, copy it, and bring it to your, wherever you're storing your files. I'll put it down here, down in there at Civil 3D Projects. Edit, paste. You're going to give that a name by right-clicking, saving as, or renaming, I'm sorry, with your last 4 digits at the start. That's going to differentiate your project from something else, and whatever your descriptor is. In this case, I'm doing September 20th. You're going to double-click inside to double-check that it's got or doesn't have any excess data. I'm going to go down here to Surface. That shouldn't be there, so I'm going to get rid of that. You're going to bring that in, so I'll have to get rid of that, as I will in a second. I'm going to go out right now to clean up that file out there. So everything else should be there, should be correct. I'm going to go back out to the K drive here, and once again, this was downloaded from the DOT, and so this is not, don't get it in your head you're going out to the K drive. Get it in your head that you are going out to the DOT as they update, potentially update their files out there. In the Civil 3D development, in the data structure here, that's where we store all of our updates for the files. Going back here in support and research, in here, underneath here, I'm going to get rid of that file so it isn't carried around. Okay, I've now set up my directory structure correct. I go through the DOT link into Civil 3D. I open that. Trying to do this within 15 minutes, all the way with 15 to 30 minutes, all the way of a project, start to finish. The project will not be correct, but it will be, in effect, a project. So this is, we're kind of promoting here the ability to run the software. Now that you've done alignments in Trimble, you should start to recognize, you've done some by hand in the back of the classroom, you should start to recognize commonality to a basic civil design. And I'm making this thing fit, hopefully, here. I'm going to close that out for now. That, of course, if you notice, tells me everything's right to a degree. Bring this up so we can see it. The other thing that's going to tell us that everything is right is File, New, and we see the short list. So I'm going to grab the topo, open it right away, and then right away File, Save As, sticking it in the right spot immediately so you don't lose track of where your files are. Go down to here. In this case, this was September 20th. Down in the design, down in surfaces, and we're just going to go and once again give the 4606 underscore September 20th underscore, I should be using capitals if we can, September 20th underscore X topo. You're going to see this use of X topo or P line or a line in the civil, in the Wisconsin DOT requirements. I'm going to hit save there. It's saving everything there. Now, before we bring our projects in, we have to make sure that all the point settings are correct, and they are not. So I'm going to point out that if we go to settings now, before we bring anything in and go to points, you've got all these point styles, and if you look at any of them by right-clicking, edit, you're going to see the 3D geometry is going to use the elevation. So we need to change those down. And we're going to go through and actually change one of these so they're all back to flat, at least for the existing. We'll be putting our proposed information in 3D, but in this case, I believe the only one we have is, let's see, we're looking for an XYZ, and so the names are not existing surface. Random shot XYZ, I think that's what I called it. Right click, edit. We're going to change that to flatten to elevation. Elevation is 0, and we'll see if that brings everything in. So this case, you're all set to go. You want to make sure that your points are set, or at least be aware that this 2D versus 3D thing is a big deal. Now, before we move on, I'm going to push this over to the side. I'm going to bring my data, which is just basically data that was shot. I'm going to stick it with the project immediately. So I'm going to go to here to the transfer directory, and I've got out there the set underscore DOT, meaning I've changed it for the DOT requirements. I am going to copy, and then I'm going to go back to the correct spot, subdirectory, sticking it in the data file where you're going to be able to find these things. I'm going to go ahead here, Civil 3D Projects, September 20th. We're going to go into base data, into survey data, and original data. And I'm going to do edit, paste. In this case, I'm going to rename it 4606 underscore survey underscore DOT. In other words, we have made some changes to the description keys, or to the descriptions on the points. You have that down. Now you can go ahead and bring in your points however you know. Eventually you're going to see we're going to really want to bring in data that is not just XYZ data that is stripped out. We would like to have rich data. In other words, know the difference between things that were shot by GPS, things that were shot by total station, things that were taken off of other information sources. So we're going to go points from file, PNEZD. Of course, that's incredibly important. What did I forget? Well, it'd be a great idea. You've learned with Greg right away to go here to settings, back to the top, to the drawing, right-click, edit the drawing settings, and change your projection to Wisconsin State Plain Central if that's what you're using. You're going to see as you get into using Maps Civil 3D and other engines, being able to collaborate data, county data or state plain data is not a big deal as long as you put things in the right spot. Central zone, US foot. I think this is what we're using. You can even change your scale here if you want, 1 to 40, 1 to 20 typically, apply. Okay, that's going to be, you could do that later, but it's better starting. You're better off starting that way. So now I'm going to once again now do points, not points, but you're going to do insert points from file. This is all last semester's work, looking not that different. You want to go back to, I guess I never renamed it, CSV. I'll just go ahead and use that. I guess I didn't hit the rename. So I'm getting the data from the right spot. I'm going to hit open here, and I hit OK. Duplicate point numbers, I am going to use the next point number because I've got some things that I didn't data out. So I'm hitting zoom, extents, and I see all my data there. And you see it's all in ground shot. So now you've got data, and I am going to go through and now check what layer these things are on. So I'm going to click on them, and you'll notice that since things were kind of laid out correctly, this is actually, the raw description is GS. The name is not set. It goes on the P underscore miscellaneous. So that's actually not so good where we place them, but we'll live with it. They'll put them on a proposed layer, so that in all reality is something we've got to change back. All right, so all these are on a proposed layer. Now let's check indeed if in fact they are in 3D or 2D. So if we look at, I'm going to do a list here, window. Raw description, these are not updated, I believe. Or actually, that perhaps they will. GS must be a typical one, so they did go on a particular layer. So we're going to keep on going from there just so we can finish out these few minutes here. Make sure that we know our descriptions, that we have changed that point style. You want to make sure that you have an ability to use layer command and layer 2 command. You want to make sure that you probably have the draw and the modify off on the right side. That probably, you don't want it to walk on top of what are called transparent commands here off on the right. But right now we're going to go ahead and go to our layer command and have the layers up. We might want to go down to, notice how many there are. It takes a long time to process through the first time. And we're going to go down to existing DTM, existing surface, and I'm just going to go ahead right now. We're going to kind of look at the existing surface boundary marsh, rock. We'll just use weak for now. We'll have to kind of develop which of these layers we're going to use, but you want to really get, there is actually a existing surface, existing DTM is what we're looking for, base boundary. So I'm going to go ahead and set that as my current layer, and now I'm going to make sure that my snaps are not on, and I'm going to just do a boundary around all the points. Boundaries are best done by P lines, 2D P lines, if you remember. 1, 2, go all the way around the process here. We'll check out where all those points came from. Now you're set to go with your tin. There'll be a number of boundaries, both internal and external. Hide boundaries if you would. Next thing, of course, as you go would be to go through and do a set of break lines, which we're not going to do in this case. We're going to definitely want to be aware of the iterative nature, and that the fact that what you covered last semester, hopefully, is that a topo survey is not a design survey. A design survey is going to be much more correct than a topo survey. They're going to spend much more time to get this information completely right. For now, we'll be looking at that in your projects, but for now, we'll be going a lot of one-offs quickly through. One thing you have to realize, you need to get out to the center line, or perhaps you want to have data that extends beyond where you think your project might go. And I think you've run across that already when you've done your staking out with Trimble. If you start your road and you at 10 plus 0, 0, and you don't explain to the machine that you might want to start at 9 plus 80, as soon as you get to the end of the road, you fall off the tin. That's an issue if you're driving a big machine in machine control. All right, surfaces. Right-click, create surface. You're going to once again use that front name a lot, 4606 underscore September 20 underscore X topo. In other words, this is the existing topo. Once again, we'll try to get better at the capitalization. You hit OK. You're going to go ahead in that surface now. You're going to go to the definition. You can add first point groups or point files, and in this case, we're going to add all points. And then right away, we're going to add boundaries. I'm adding the boundary there. I'm running out of time right around now, so I'm going to grab the boundary. It shouldn't affect anything, and you see what it's done there. And there's different ways that it deals with boundaries. At that point, we're set to go with actually doing an alignment. So we'll pick that up in a couple of minutes after I save this file.